right, people, V&V Podcast, episode 66. Me, Ruairi Spooner, James Veck, and Rhys Henly. We're all back again with the news and the views and everything else in between. So to start with, I want to give a shout out to all my fellow Grimsby fans. That's right, yes. I am now a co-owner of Grimsby Town Football Club, albeit it's only 2 shares or £200 worth of the club. But we are now the official podcast of Grimsby Town. So if you are a Grimsby fan, fucking like and subscribe.
Yeah.
There'll be lots of Grimsby-related content, I guess, as well in this podcast.
There's going to be hopefully. I am actually invited to Grimsby events. I think I'll have to read up on the terms and conditions of my purchase again. But
just you wait, right? I feel like that something good's going to be building at Grimsby, and when they're sort of getting into approaching the Premier League in the playoffs, the Championship, and we've got a day out in a box, boys, because Spooner's obviously going to invite us because it's V&V, isn't it?
Yeah.
The V&V VIP. That's what
exactly.
It is.
Look, we are the official podcast of Grimsby Town. I am going to try and get Ian Holloway on a Zoom so I can do some sort of tactics with him. I'm going to try and, like I said to the lads earlier on, I'm going to try and get some Grimsby content in, which is weird because I never thought I'd ever say that in my life. But we'll try and get a few players on and.
You should do a Grimsby section every week. How is Grimsby getting on?
We might have to now. I am a co-owner. I do have responsibilities. Weirdly, a lot of people don't know this. I think I might have told you lads as well. Obviously, Adam Richmond is also a co-owner of Man vs. Food, which, I mean, is the most bizarre situation ever. If you told me that I would co-own a football club with the guy from Man vs. Food, I would have just said.
He just wants to be seen as a do-gooder, probably. Just put as many as needs it.
Well, I'm doing it from the goodness of my heart. Like, it's not an economic purchase. There were people who pointed out, I won't name names, but a few people I know that pointed out, they were like, well, why would you do that? What's the point? You're not going to make any money. And I was like, it's more to do with the fact that the pandemic and it's hit a lot of football clubs hard. We look at Wigan, for example. I know obviously we spoke about Wigan yesterday. That's a slightly different scenario, but I know there's a lot of clubs that are struggling. So for me, out of the goodness of this in here, I decided.
What can you say, Rhys? He's just a man of the people, isn't he? Man of the people.
It's good to give, isn't it?
Papa Spoon.
Yeah. Uncle Spoon looking after things again, you know. But lads, we won't digress. We'll come back to Grimsby shortly. I know that's the one people want to hear, but look, you're going to have to wait for more of it. So we'll jump straight into Thiago versus Liverpool. Thiago to Liverpool, should I say. Your take, lads, on Thiago very quickly, and what do you think he will bring to the Liverpool
side? So as we know, it's still very much a rumour at the moment that's just picked up quite a bit of traction. As we also know, as rumours, they can obviously come to something, but more often than not, they tend to come to nothing. I'll speak about the Thiago to Liverpool as if it could happen, and if it was to happen, I do think it would be a decent signing. I rate Thiago a lot. I think I know you guys do as well. We've watched some of his games, some of his highlights, and he was linked with United quite a few years back, and some reports will say it was close, some will say it was nonsense, but United fans were quite excited back then. And he's only got possibly better at Bayern Munich, or he's at least still as good as he was then. So I don't know what I'd be thinking if I was maybe someone like a Wijnaldum or a Keita. Would my position be under threat where we sort of play? But I mentioned in the last episode, I think they could do with a proper playmaker, like not a deep lion, but like a proper number 10. He isn't that for me, but if it was to happen, would he strengthen them? I think he would.
I'm in agreement. So are you saying, Rhys?
Well, look, Thiago's a really good player. If I was to ask either of you guys and just say the first thing that comes into your head, what area of the team, if any of the team, do Liverpool need to strengthen? What would you say?
I would say probably the centre of the park.
So when you win a title, you need to try and strengthen in some way, and Thiago would definitely allow you to do that. Now, I don't know exactly what the figure is that Liverpool would have to pay, or any compensation package if he was just coming as a free agent, but I'm not sure it would make sense for Liverpool. I think that when they signed Naby Keita, who is undoubtedly a very good player, just based on the performances, all the time I see him, he can't get into the team. They paid near to £50 million for him. So I think wouldn't make sense for them to not buy yet another midfielder. It doesn't matter if he's world class or whatever, but because Wijnaldum's had a great season, Henderson's had a great season. Naby Keita, when he's played, he's been very good, and they've also got James Milner who can keep things ticking. Fabinho, a different type of player, but yeah, definitely he wouldn't be displaced in that team. So I'd have question marks on it. That being said, you do see sometimes title-winning teams neglect the opportunity to strengthen. I mean, we look at Man City the last few seasons. They haven't really signed any world-class players since, I would say, Laporte, and he's obviously not world-class, but he's probably the last player who really strengthened that team. I think that influx of players, Bernardo Silva, Laporte, were the last sort of intake of players, and they have struggled. I think Liverpool haven't really gone forward. If anything, they've gone backwards this season. Again, not strengthening, just in terms of the quality of their performances. But City have done that even worse, and they've gone even further backwards, and hence why Liverpool have been so dominant this year. So I think City definitely will strengthen, which will probably force Liverpool's hand. I don't know, to be honest. I couldn't really call it.
It's like, if Thiago is available, because we all know it could just be like a move to strengthen his contract position, right? Because that happens a lot. But if he was available and he is quite strongly linked with Liverpool, they might be thinking, well, what happens if he goes somewhere else in the Premier League? So whilst, like Rhys pointed out, their midfield is performing very, very well and has done for the last 2 years, some Liverpool fans or people might say, well, so-and-so doesn't deserve to be dropped. Wijnaldum doesn't deserve to be dropped.
It's interesting you say that, Becky, because that Liverpool team, they're a quality side, right? Let's not get it twisted. They're very good at what they do. But their midfield, if we were to break it down player by player, the only world-class player that's in there is Fabinho. Jordan Henderson is a good player, but he's not in that bracket of elite midfielders. Wijnaldum, again, a solid midfielder. He's not in that bracket. Oxlade-Chamberlain, again, solid player, but he's not in that bracket. Milner, he's coming towards the end now. I don't know how much long Milner really has left at Liverpool, maybe a season or two tops. But they don't have what you would call a world-class creative midfielder. So I do think Thiago gets into that side relatively easy. I think Naby Keita next season will be big for him. But it's hard to say.
The thing is, though,
it's about signing the right players. When you've got the mood in the camp, I mean, the reason Liverpool have won the title this year is not because any of their players have been world class. I mean, you can look at Mane, you can look at Alisson, Van Dijk, and possibly Salah as well, and they have been very, very good. But you wouldn't say that they've got a nucleus of world class players. They've got a really
well-oiled machine.
They've got a charismatic manager who really pulled the squad together, and they've got this harmony within them. They play for each other. That might be the Leicester problem when they won the title. I mean, obviously it's a bit different, but they couldn't add any world-class players because they would have needed someone to slot in to the way that they play and to have that squad harmony. Do you want to change your winning recipe?
That's the thing, is that you mentioned well-oiled machine is exactly the phrase I was thinking, Spoon, and Klopp is just, he gets the absolute maximum of what he wants out of his players, not just even his starting 11. And if you are to bring a world-class, because like you say, we don't perceive players like Wijnaldum and Henderson to be world-class, although it's not like they are world-class, but they're doing world-class jobs of what they've been asked to do.
Yeah, very
and
true.
That's how it works. And like Rhys said, if you try and disturb that by bringing in an expensive, quality, world-class midfielder, like that could go wrong. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, and that's why I said I don't perceive Thiago as an out-and-out attacking midfielder number 10, which is what I think they need, which can be introduced and then taken away. So you don't necessarily have to drop anyone in the centre of the park. You can just alter your formation slightly. So it is a difficult one, but they can't stand still at the same point. They can't, because everybody else around them is going to strengthen. And I think the Liverpool of last season was arguably better than what they were this season, because there was more competition from Man City. Liverpool, they've been amazing, right? Their points tally will reflect that, but they haven't, unfortunately for them, they probably would have fought off the challenge anyway, but they haven't been challenged, really, which is, I feel like they have not been as good and they've dropped off slightly. I don't think they're going to get that again next season as easily.
Yeah,
I don't think they will either.
They've won very ugly this year, is what you'd say. They haven't been breathtaking in many of their games, which is something that you would have said they were, especially in the second half of last season. They were absolutely incredible, whereas Man City were the team, grinding the 1-0s, and that is the mark for champions.
No, it absolutely is. I just think that they were better last season. Their points tally probably will be very, very similar, but I wouldn't say they haven't been lucky or anything like that. They've been absolutely out of this world good in terms of their consistency. But next season, I think they will have a much bigger challenge, which will mean they can't stand still.
Yeah, true. The Thiago price, just reading now, lads, they think it's around 35 million, which would be a bargain for him because he's coming up to the end of his contract.
It would be difficult to say no at 35 million pounds.
Yeah, it would be very difficult. And going back to the Harmony, just to touch upon that before we come off Liverpool. I actually forgot to bring it up last week when we had Chris on. But I can't remember the last time I saw a player fall out with Jurgen Klopp. I couldn't remember. Can you remember one?
It's all them hugs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's constantly hugging everyone.
That's that wonderful cologne on, isn't he?
That's why next time I go to work, I'm going to start hugging people, and I'll just never get sacked.
Yeah. I don't know about that, mate. Yeah.
And in HR as well,
Yeah, we want you to stay on the podcast. I don't want to be visiting jail. Like, let's keep the hugs to a minimum for now, unless it's consensual. All right. Moving on then, lads. De Gea. We wanted to discuss him because he's been again, all over the news for the past couple of weeks. We had a little bit of a debate as to his fault, shall we say, for the goal on the weekend. How long do you think he's got left at United, lads? Do you think next season will be his last, or do you think he's going to relish the competition from Henderson?
Why did I take this one, and I'll get your guys' opinion on it as my friends. As an outsider looking in, I think I had a discussion with you two after the 2018 World Cup, and I just said, look, the signs are there. He has gone off the boil. World-class goalkeepers don't make these mistakes. And of course, being Man United fans, but also being football fans, you kind of give him the benefit of the doubt after the last, few years before that. Let's be honest.
He had a lot of credit in the bank.
Exactly. Yeah, you give him the benefit of the doubt. But throughout last season, he was extremely inconsistent, and this season he's been even worse. What you'd have to say is, if he's going to lose his spot, which is something I do support, I think that either he needs to be challenged with another number one goalkeeper who can put the pressure on him. He would need somebody who was world class. Is Dean Henderson that man? I don't think so. I think he's capable of very good performances for Sheffield United. I think he's capable of being the England number one. But can you get to a place of winning the title without bringing in a goalkeeper as good as Ederson or Alisson, who will get you 10 points a season? Henderson isn't that man. Don't get me wrong, I think he's brilliant. I think he's a really good goalkeeper. I don't think he's the man who can be a title-winning goalkeeper as it is. He needs another couple of years on loan at Sheffield or similar clubs. I would bring in a new goalkeeper instead of David De Gea. I think I would look into a player plus construction. You might have to look at giving him back to Atletico Madrid and finding a deal to bring Oblak to the club. Something along those lines. But for me, David De Gea, he needs a big arm around his shoulder to try and bring him in to get his confidence back. But to be honest, every time the ball comes near him, he looks like he's going to concede. And I think the thing about David De Gea of old is, if you're one-on-one with the goalkeeper, or if you're going up for header, you're just thinking to yourself as a striker, this goalkeeper is going to save this. And that can get into your head, and it weighs in the goalkeeper's favour. Now, if you're going through on goal, if a championship player is playing against David De Gea in the FA Cup, he's thinking, I can do him. No problem. I'll take it round him. Even if I shoot straight at him, it's going to go in. And that's the way people view him now. And as soon as a goalkeeper loses that status as somebody who to be feared, I think that's it.
For me, right, I agree with most of what you say. Like, his performances have been very below par, and especially when you compare them to how he has been in seasons past, where I know United team wasn't great, but he won Player of the Season about 3 or 4 years in a row, and he was rightly gaining us 10 to 12 points a season, or preventing us from losing them. And you think, where would we have been back then when we were finishing 6th and 7th without him being that good? Now, I think there's a balance between when a goalkeeper makes mistakes like he has been, keep playing him, so you're not just casting him aside and giving him opportunities to get better. But then I think now it's reaching the point with De Gea where Solskjaer needs to look at dropping him. You look at our backup, Romero, okay, not the best keeper in the world, but he has had good performances, and I think that he's a good enough backup potentially for the moment to stand in and allow De Gea to sort of someone put an arm on his shoulder and just take a long hard look at himself and how far he's kind of fallen in terms of form. And I think that's what has to happen, because he seems to be making mistakes now consistently, basic errors that you would never really attribute to De Gea. So if I was Ollie, I would drop him now. He's had ample opportunities, and see how he reacts to that. I mentioned Oblak, like you said, someone of that stature. You've got to give De Gea a chance to bounce back. I think for him to bounce back, he has to be dropped at the moment. And if the bounce back doesn't come, then yeah, you are going to have to look. He's only 29, is he? And normally, a lot of good goalkeepers get better with age. He's doing the opposite at the moment. It's not to say that he can't, but yeah, I think he's got to be dropped. Got to see how he responds. He either comes back better, like some goalkeepers do, or we're going to have to look at upgrading.
I think, what killed De Gea? The broken fax machine. I think it killed him. I genuinely do. Do you know, sometimes in life, you're in a job, and we've all been there, lads, where we're in jobs, and you're just coasting, and you are in 4th gear, you're just driving along, and everything's smooth, and all of a sudden, you start to lose that desire, and you start to lose that hunger, and your mind starts to wander, and you become complacent. And he's on such a massive contract as well. And he hasn't really had any competition. Like, Romero has only played cup games. There's no one there to really put a fire under his arse and be like, I'm coming for your position. And I think De Gea, a bit like, maybe a strange comparison for some people, a bit like Arsene Wenger at Arsenal, just overstayed his welcome a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Like, there comes a point where you have to go, this isn't for me anymore. Like, I'm too in my comfort zone. And I think that broken fax machine killed De Gea, because after that, he's never really been the same goalkeeper. He's done okay in parts, but as time progresses now, I think he just needs a new challenge. I generally do. And the issue De Gea has is, where do you go? Because like Rhys said, United could try and tempt Oblak over to United with, a swap deal and some cash. But I know for a fact now a lot of Atletico Madrid fans, they hate De Gea now after that whole Real Madrid thing, where he tried to actively force a move to them. That's a guy that went through the Atletico Madrid academy and all of a sudden was trying to join their biggest rivals. So Bayern don't need him. PSG could use him. I mean, Real don't really need him. Where does he go?
You could sell him to Madrid and raise the funds to buy another goalkeeper. Like Madrid I don't think they would turn him down. I think they would still take him.
Barca could take him, I suppose, as well. Barca are rebuilding.
I think the problem with that would be if you were to sell a goalkeeper of David De Gea's standard with the knowledge that you're not in that top tier yet, and that's where you want to be, then it's the Harry Maguire effect in a sense, because you will go to a club, let's say you do want Jan Oblak. Let's say that his market value is £80 million as a goalkeeper. If you haven't got David De Gea already, then you haven't got the power to say, well, we don't have to have him. Whereas if you go then having already sold David De Gea, that price goes from 80 million to 130, 140 million. And we've seen Man United really aren't prepared to pay through the nose for some players who they really should. When you take into account the wages that these people would be expecting. You look at Jadon Sancho, won't pay about 50 million. Yeah. So any deal that would have to be done, I think, would have to be done with David De Gea as a part of it.
Okay. What's your take, Becky?
I see the logic, but I don't think it's out of the question to buy another world-class goalkeeper without him being part of the deal. You know, Liverpool had Loris Karius, and they end up with Alisson. You know, so like if that's not the upgrade of all upgrades, then what is? But City got Edison when would they have Claudio Bravo. So like I get what you're saying. Like it would make better sense to try and involve him as part of it, the deal. But I don't think it's beyond that they sell him to someone like a Madrid or Barcelona and then try and pick up like Stegen or an All Black. Won't be cheap.
I think before long, it's going to get to a stage where Roy Keane just bursts onto the pitch and escorts David De Gea out of
But I think what could likely happen is if something like that doesn't happen, then they will probably look to Dean Henderson and end up giving him a go. You know, and it could go well, but it could end up like another Ben Foster situation where he's just back in the day where he's just got unbelievable potential, doing like so well on loan. And then he comes in under big pressure, big expectations, makes too many mistakes, and then gets cast aside. And then Dean Henderson could very well do that, and he could end up just being a goalkeeper for like someone like Watford. Do you know what I mean? Or somebody like a mid-table Premier League club.
It's a hard effect.
That could happen, but time will tell. You know, it's hard with De Gea, like you say, Spooner. He's afforded a lot of credit, you know, and rightfully he has almost lives to use up, but he's very slowly, but he's quickly rather running out of those, isn't he? Like he's
running out of chances now, and it's going to be a long road back for him. Like I said, I think he needs a new challenge. I think he'd be better off just going, you know what? I think he's done almost a decade at United, which is a long time. You know,
I agree, but one thing I would say in his defence is, whilst yes, we will all agree he's been terrible. The one thing to consider is that he's not helped at all by his defence. Harry Maguire has been, I think, to all neutrals, I think he would appear to have been a flop at United. He really, really hasn't been impressive in a lot of his defensive performances when challenged. And then you look at people like Lindelof, Bailly, Jones especially. These are players who really are exposing him. And I guess if he's lost confidence in his defence, then that relationship doesn't help. Yeah. Furthermore, United actually have been really impressive this season going forward. Especially with, players like Bruno Fernandes, the recent performances of Pogba, Greenwood, Martial and Rashford all encouraging United fans and exciting them. Perhaps there is just naturally less defence of a goalkeeper when you've got that exciting players up front. Perhaps you don't need to hide behind David De Gea as the club's best player because he's not anymore. Perhaps he doesn't get that legendary status. I don't know.
Yeah. Like on your first point there, the only thing I would say is that statistically speaking, our defence is a lot better this year. Give your opinions on the individual defenders, and that's fair enough. In years gone past, our defensive record has been awful, and when called upon, he used to deliver, didn't he? De Gea used to make unbelievable save after unbelievable save, because our defence back then was equally as poor as you could say it is now. So yeah, I agree what you're saying, but like our defenders aren't helping him. But when he's faced with these shots now, he's not even saving most of them anymore. He's making blunders, which is the main difference. But at the moment, we're that team that if you score 2, we'll score 4 at the moment against most clubs. And lucky for United, on paper, we're not going to face anybody else the rest of this season that we can't realistically outscore. That makes sense. So our running is favourable, that if against any team, they could score 2, but like we did to Bournemouth. Defensively, we were awful against Bournemouth, but we scored 5. I think most of the teams we play this season, we could do that too, realistically, which could keep the chance of the top 4. But then, come the transfer window, still work needs to be done.
I agree. Time will reveal all again, lads. So, moving swiftly on, another subject I wanted to bring up, because I know a lot of Spurs fans, and a lot of Spurs fans are very unhappy with Jose Mourinho. Now, Jose Mourinho going to Spurs was very contentious anyway. A lot of people felt like it wasn't the right fit. Jose Mourinho, a man that is used to, quote-unquote, buy in the league, now has to basically use what's at his disposal and develop them and coach them and even bring through younger players, especially with the pandemic and the lack of money. Now, our Spurs transfer video did terrific. Spurs fans love transfers. They can't get enough of it. And it looks like they need to rebuild. Watching a Pochettino interview, I think it was yesterday, it was on Sky Sports, I think it was just after the Champions League, or it was just before the Champions League final, where he talked about Spurs, and he said, we have to rebuild. We have to start from scratch. He was under no illusions that Spurs really needed a rebuild. Now, a lot of people that were willing to afford Pochettino that time aren't willing to afford Jose Mourinho that time. Now, bear in mind, I think Jose Mourinho's had, is it one transfer window? Is that it?
Yeah. One transfer. He signed in, and that's it.
Yeah.
January.
Oh, and there's Fernandes, the Portuguese lad as well. He signed too. So he's made 2 signings, one of which was pretty decent, one of which was neither here nor there. But obviously, he's got one window, which was a January window, and then he's going to have a summer window, which is affected by a pandemic. So, as Spurs fans, are they realistic? What type of realistic ambition should they have of Mourinho? Should they be willing to give him like a 3 or 4 year plan?
Definitely. Yeah. Mourinho's done enough in the game to warrant that. I mean, even if you say that he hasn't been overly successful for some years, taking Man United to second place was a massive, massive achievement when you look at what's happened since and before.
I agree, yeah.
He's done enough in the game to warrant that. I think the reason that they were willing to give Pochettino more time is because he doing that with Spurs. I think with Mourinho tends to do better in his second season, once he's had that chance to evaluate the squad. Like you said, there's been interruptions in the season and things like that. The problem is, I think he was really unfortunate. I think he came in around November time, October, November time. And he was in a position where he had one of the best players in the world, or definitely in the squad, Christian Eriksen, who was obviously on a course to leave the club. And they really, really miss him, and they haven't been able to replace him. I think they've looked at a few different players to try and fill that hole: Moura, Son, Bergwijn. None of them are are of his quality, and they really struggle. Harry Kane especially struggles without Christian Eriksen, and he's the main source of goals. Couple that with the fact that Son had a long injury as well as national service. He's been unfortunate. That being said, they really need to buck their ideas up, because they just can't put the ball in the net, and that's a real issue.
Yeah. I think that when you appoint Jose Mourinho as a manager, you know exactly what you're getting. His resume speaks for itself. Now, historically, you've got Daniel Levy, which is one of the stingiest men in football, and Mourinho, someone who likes to spend a lot of money on proven players, usually. And normally, you wouldn't put them two together. It just wouldn't happen. So obviously, discussions took place with Daniel Levy. They must have met somewhere in the middle, right? Or he must have promised him something. Otherwise, you would imagine Mourinho would have taken that. I think Spurs fans that are criticising Mourinho are a little bit delusional at the moment, because they're not his players. You look at that squad, like we said, Eriksen was leaving. He had long injuries to Kane and Son, which are his 2 best players. The defence, we talk about United's defence, Spurs is just as poor and ageing. Players like Alderweireld and Vertonghen are past their best.
And then Settled as well.
Yeah. You've got Davinson Sanchez, who I don't rate.
Eric Dyer.
He slots in. Are Ben Davies and Serge Aurier good enough? I don't think so. And he hasn't had a proper summer transfer window. And like you say, Spoon, it's unlikely he's going to get a proper one this time around because of the pandemic. Jose Mourinho is a proven winner. He spends money, and he needs to be allowed to spend that money, or have a window where he can put his stamp on team. He's been very unlucky, I think, with his injuries and the squad that he's inherited. So I don't really think you can judge him at the moment. Like you say, second season's better. You got United second. They won the Europa League. They won a cup. He can win trophies, and that's something that Spurs fans really crave. Is getting their first sort of trophy. And you give him a full proper season with a transfer window, I think that he could possibly do that for them. They're just in a bad spot at the moment. They've got an aging poor squad, and they're in bad form.
In my transfer video, I picked out Achraf Hakimi to join Spurs. I said he'd be a great signing, and I said in the video, Real Madrid need the money. He's outgrown the Bundesliga. It's time for him to move on, and the next stepping stone for him would be Spurs. Now, by all accounts, little story for you lads, because this is very interesting. It's slightly off topic. Matt Judge is head of recruitment, or one of the heads of recruitment at Manchester United. And this is a story that I heard, and I think I brought it up on the podcast. Maybe it was towards the end of the year. Maybe it was a while back. Anyway, I won't digress. But Achraf Hakimi was and is a Manchester United fan. Now, Achraf Hakimi walked into Matt Judge's office before they signed Aaron Wan-Bissaka with his agent, and Matt Judge turned around and went, "Who are you?" Like to Achraf Hakimi. He didn't know who he was when he walked in the office, and that put Achraf Hakimi off signing for Manchester United, which he then went on and had a very successful season with Dortmund. But he has been ready to leave Dortmund and move on to a bigger step. Now, why Spurs didn't go for him, I don't know. Just looking at his transfer fee, I think it's around 36 million. For a fullback of his quality, I just think Spurs are I don't know. Chelsea are very proactive, for example, in the transfer market. They establish what they need. They go, okay, what's the price? Okay, fair enough. That's not a bad price. We'll do it. We'll get him in early, get him in ready. That's the type of signing that Inter Milan have made that Spurs should have made to prep them ready for next season. And I can't see why Spurs are waiting.
How do you think that Spurs are financially counted, though? Because they've obviously spent an awful lot of money on that stadium. I think if you ask most, if not all Spurs fans now, as much as they love that stadium, they'd happily be back in White Hart Lane, banging goals in with the better team.
Yeah,
yes, true.
I think it's unfair, actually. Knocking Spurs for not having signed Hakimi. I think it's hard to make signings in the current climate, especially before the end of the season, not knowing if you're going to get Europa League. They're probably not going to get the Champions League, but that's not out of the question. But as far as Achraf Hakimi is concerned, I think he's a very, very good fullback. I think he'd be an asset to a lot of clubs. But, Serge Aurier, I think, James, you mentioned that he's probably not good enough. I actually think he is good enough. He needs to sort of discipline out. I think he's quite erratic at times. But behind Trent Alexander-Arnold, he's actually the defender who's provided the most assists this season. And he tends to bomb forward really well. He tends to contribute a lot. If we're talking about where Spurs need to strengthen, I would say right back would be one of the areas I would leave be. Is Ben Davies good enough? Again, James, you said probably not, and maybe on ability, maybe he isn't. But Mourinho loves him, and he fits into the system. He fits into the system really well, because where Aurier bombs on, Ben Davies almost tucks in as a centre half, whereas Danny Rose couldn't do that, and neither would Ryan Sessegnon, which is their other options. So he really is a Mourinho player and will likely stay in the squad as well. So I think at fullback, I think Spurs would be unlikely to make a signing. I think you'd look at Tanguy Ndombele.
Yeah.
Mourinho doesn't seem to fancy him. I wouldn't be surprised if he was carted off to Monaco or Lyon or something like that this season, at the end of the season. I think centre midfield and at 10 is definitely an area that needs to be strengthened. I do like Lo Celso.
Yeah, I like Lo Celso. He's a very good player.
Centre half as well, I think they need to strengthen.
I just don't think he's the player for Spurs at the moment.
Interesting, lads. Interesting. Well, yeah, Spurs is another one we'll come back to. Obviously, Spurs are they're a very interesting talking point, especially with Mourinho at the front of it all. So, yeah, we'll certainly come back to that and take a look at it as it evolves. And I suppose we can just reanalyze things when we know where the land lies and we know where they finish and what they can and can't do. But moving forward, Rhys, your part. The floor is yours. Newcastle takeover. Where are we? What are we doing? What time are the flights to the Middle East?
Oh man, well, I mean, it's you know the picture of the skeleton sitting in the chair. That is every Newcastle fan watching Twitter for the past 4 months. There have been takeover rumours before, and obviously we did the video explaining why this time it's different. The takeover, in my opinion, will go through. there's been a lot of
Becky's rolling his eyes again.
There's been a lot of complication about this takeover. It's not simple. The fact that the Sovereign Wealth Fund wants to take over the club means that you've got all these issues surrounding human rights and ethics and things like that. But that looks to be a side issue that's not going to be intervened with by the government. So that one we can put aside. The main issue has been piracy. A lot of sources have come out and said over the last few weeks it's going to be in the next couple of weeks, as has happened the whole way through. As I understand it, it is looming closer. I think Richard Masters was actually written to by northeast-based politicians as well as fan groups and supporters groups and things like that. And whilst he was quite tight-lipped, he did say that he would want it to be concluded shortly. Again, you can put that word in the same bracket as imminent, close, all these kinds of words that have been floating around Twitter. The main issue, like I said, is piracy surrounding the sports channel BLQ. It's based in Saudi Arabia. Now, this has been shut down. Saudi Arabia has been really committed to shutting down all sorts of piracy. And I believe that, if sources are to be believed, I think the Premier League are now trying to monitor that just to make sure that's the real deal. They do want Saudi Arabian money in the Premier League. We all know that the Premier League are all for money. We look at TV rights and things like that. They just want as much money as they can possibly get. The question is, can they do that without piracy being involved? And I think that they would have just said no, had it not been for the money. And I think that they're looking to try and work with Saudi Arabia so they can get this boxed off. I'll liken it to a Southampton takeover in 2017. That was subject to the 2 to 4 week owners and directors test. And that ended up dragging on for 8 months. The Newcastle takeover has currently taken 4 months, which was meant to take 2 to 4 weeks. So I think it will get boxed off. When it will get boxed off, it could be any time between now and the end of the season, in my opinion. Sources will tell you 2 weeks shortly, but it's really hard to tell because it's such a confidential process, and there's so many things being examined. Anything could go wrong, but the moment they all line up, I think they'll just give it the green light, and then at that point, it will take 3 days for the funds to go through, and then the ownership to change place. But I do think it will go through. It is when, not if.
Interesting.
Well, I think after recent developments, there's probably, I think Spooner will become the owner of Grimsby Town before the Saudi Arabia.
I technically am the owner of Grimsby Town before the Saudis.
The full owner of Grimsby Town. That's more likely at the moment. But I suppose we can end the Newcastle discussion on when, not if, again, same as last week and the week before.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
We shall see, yeah, indeed. All right, lads, top 4 in relegation. Your opinions. Who do you think is going to be the top 4? Who do you think is going down? Let me know.
Rhys, you go first.
I think we probably have. We had a discussion about this earlier on in the week, James. Yeah. I think we're on the same page for a really rare occasion. I think Man United will get it. I think Leicester will drop out, just based on the fact that I know they won 3-0 against Palace. There was an air of fortune to that. I think they will lose against Arsenal in the week, and it won't be long till they drop out altogether. Arsenal are in really good form. I think that they will gain enough points to challenge, but I don't think that they will get in. I think it's too far for them. Likewise, Tottenham. I think they'll come good eventually. Chelsea are a weird one as well. They could go off the boil. Do I think that based on the last year and a half of form, United would get in? No, but you look at their recent form, which is everything in a run into the end of the season, as well as their fixtures. There's not very. I said to James, there's not very many losable games there. There's a few banana skins, but not really anything that would really you'd say would challenge them. Whereas Leicester and Chelsea, especially, have hard games, and Wolves, I think, after that loss against Arsenal on the weekend, I think that spells the end for them. So for me, it would be Liverpool, Man City, obviously, and then I would put Man United 3rd place and Chelsea 4th.
A United compliment. Well, Fuck me. I never thought I would see that ever. Becky,
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? Liverpool City are obviously as they are. And I do agree, I think Leicester will fall out. I think they lose to Arsenal. Their fixtures aren't quite as favourable as United's. I know Chelsea, I think they've still got Liverpool to play in, towards the end of the season. It depends what kind of Liverpool side they face. I'm sure Klopp will be chasing certain points records, so they probably still play a decent team. If Leicester lose to Arsenal sort of midweek, and then United win, we'll sort of go joint points with Leicester because they are 3 points ahead. I'm just looking at it now, and then I think they will fall away. United's fixtures are pretty good. So yeah, I don't want to predict whether United or Chelsea are third or fourth, but I do think it'll be City, Liverpool, and then United or Chelsea.
I think United will get in if they keep Bruno fit. That's it.
Yeah, and Arsenal, they are coming on a bit strong now, but they're 6 points behind United, and they're going to need to win all their games potentially, and United to lose.
Yeah, I can't see it.
So it's not going to be likely.
Yeah.
What about you?
I think, well, do you know what? Last week I thought Leicester would do it. I still think Leicester have the advantage because all they have to do is just basically go unbeaten, which sounds easier than it is, I know. But that Leicester side, if they do pick up a bit of form, they are a very good side. If United will sneak in there if they keep Bruno fit. He is the catalyst to absolutely everything. Keep him fit, keep him well. You're going to win the games because he's just incredible. He is just ridiculous. Chelsea, I think, again, a very solid side. Pulisic is just coming on in leaps and bounds. He's been nothing short of sensational since the lockdown. Well, I say lockdown ended. The fixtures came back. And Chelsea look good. I mean, I'm interested to see them next season with Ziyech and Mount and Pulisic and Werner and, maybe, a few others in there as well. So, yeah, no, Chelsea are looking good. So I think, I'm probably with you, lads. As long as Bruno stays fit, then the top four will be what you two have discussed. From a relegation standpoint, who do you think, lads? What do you think?
As it is. I think the three teams in that order are the three shittest teams in the league currently. I don't like Villa. All Villa had was their home form. That was the thing everyone about our home form. And now there's no fans. They've got nothing.
Yes, very true.
They spend an awful amount of money, awfully large amount of money. It's come to nothing. Me and Rhys actually listened to an old TalkSport caller from just before the start of this season of a Villa fan saying that Tyrone Mings was nearly as good as Van Dijk and they could break into the top six and all this nonsense. I hope they go down and never come back up.
Wow. Some Villa fans out there going to be pissed with you, bro, let me tell you.
Yeah, I just I don't know what it is about them. I just don't like them. But yeah, Bournemouth, they look all over the place. They look like they could potentially, they're that bad, they could concede double figures in a football match. It could have been double figures against United. Me and Rhys watched them the other day against Newcastle. They're so bad at injuries that they're bringing in players you're like, know who they are in their team, and their fixtures aren't great. They still got the top six to face. And Norwich are gone, they're dead. Were since Christmas.
Yeah.
And you look above them, and Brighton are picking up decent wins. West Ham just have quality. They can turn it on like it's Chelsea when they decide to. I just think Watford are a better outfit than the three below them as well. So I think as it is for me.
Okay, Riso?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with James there. Get rid of Villa. Who wants them there? I mean, I can't remember the last time that they were actually fun to watch. Just get rid of them and bring in someone, who at least the neutral can get behind. I think that Villa fans really aren't well liked. Sort of like Leeds fans, so we're just replacing Villa with Leeds, which isn't great. But there you go. I would very much enjoy seeing the back of Villa, but they will be going. There's no question about it. There's nothing about them. I like Dean Smith as a manager, but he's just got nothing. There's not a lot of quality there at all. They brought in a lot of players, but really a lot of useless players. Norwich don't look like a team that could stay in the Championship at the moment, let alone the Premier League. They will be going, no question, and that leaves that third of the team. And for me, with West Ham they've got something at the moment. They've just got a little bit of attacking momentum. Watford appear to have the quality and depth that they need to get them through. I really like Bournemouth and I really like Eddie Howe, but they have nothing. Steve Bruce's Newcastle United team dismantled them. And that is something that is not easily done. I really think they're in trouble. They need something. They need a ridiculous goal to go in, a beach ball type goal, something ridiculous that can, spark a revival. They need 2 or 3 key wins, and their fixtures are horrible. I think they've still got to play 3 or 4 of the top 6. They are going to struggle immensely, but they do need a couple of heroic performances. We do see it from time to time from, West Brom escapes, Leicester teams find something, and they need to find something badly. I think me and James were watching the game the other day. I just turned to you, Jim. We are avid football watchers. And I turned to you and I just went, who are these people? I've never heard of these players before. And it's not like they impressed their way into the team because they were awful. I think they're just not left with many players who are fit. They had 2 goalkeepers on the bench because they just didn't have enough players to name for the bench.
It was funny, right? So I was watching, me and Rhys, we were watching Bournemouth and Newcastle. And Newcastle were ripping them apart. And Rhys just couldn't believe his own eyes. He hadn't seen Newcastle do that to a team for so many years. And Newcastle, at any given moment, were creating goal-scoring chances against that Bournemouth side, away from home as well. I know it doesn't count for much. But Rhys was he was refusing to really praise the Newcastle team because he just thought Bournemouth were that shit. He's like, we're a team that don't want the ball normally because we can't run in with it. And we're dismantling Bournemouth, and it says a lot. But the only saving grace for one of those teams, Watford, Villa, Bournemouth, is that they're all within a point of each other. So if any one of them can get a bit of luck and ride out the result and leapfrog the other, they're all equally so shit that the other team will struggle then to get that back, to get a win.
And also, how often is it that we have this conversation around this point of the season, 33 games in, and you think that it's all sewn up, and all of a sudden a team comes from nowhere and picks up 2 unexpected wins. For example, you look at Sunderland picking up wins against Chelsea or Man City back in the day.
Yeah,
it happens, and we don't know why it happens, but it just happens.
Momentum.
Yeah, and the thing is, though, I do think that the lack of crowd and home support, like when we get to the serious now, the crunch time, the last 2 or 3 games of the season, where you see those teams fighting, do that. The fans help them, but I wonder if just have an empty stadium will just suck the life out of that kind of revival. I think it does play a factor. It's just an empty ground.
Yeah, no, very true, lads. Very true. There's some interesting signings we had just looking through those 3. If they do go down, obviously Norwich, you've got Jamal Lewis, Max Aarons, you've got Todd Cantwell, you've got Buendia. Villa, you've got Grealish. Bournemouth, then you've got Nathan Ake, you've got David Brooks, Joshua King might be yeah. So there's a few decent bargains to maybe we had with the pandemic. So yeah, we'll keep an eye out on that as well. But is there anything else, lads, you want to bring up before we sort of tie up the loose ends here?
Well, we would do a Grimsby roundup, but I don't think they've played any games in about 3 months. So.
No. Grimsby roundups will be coming from September onwards. We will try and get some Grimsby players on as well. And I'll try and get Adam Richmond on. I don't know what his schedule is like. If he's busy eating or I don't know what he does these days, but yeah, we'll see.
Just challenge him to an eating contest and then just have a Grimsby side thing.
I offer him some free food, he might come on, which is more than anybody else gets. So I mean, he's pushing it a bit with that. But yeah, we'll tie it up. Make sure you like and subscribe. All that good jazz. We ain't going anywhere. We've got content coming all the way through the pandemic and beyond. I'm Ruairi Spooner, James Veck, and Rhys Henly back again. Add us all up on the social media platforms. Like, subscribe. See you next time, people. Take care. Ciao.